Welcome to the Inside Scoop Live podcast, where indie authors get personal about their books, their writing, and their passions. I'm your host, Sherry Hoyt. Join me for some lively conversations with debut indie authors and seasoned veterans alike. It's a great place to find your next amazing read or even get inspired. So sit back and enjoy the show and let me know what you think. Hi, everyone. T.G. Brown is here today to talk about his debut novel, Tribal Honor. It's a story that follows an elite tribal police officer on the Jericho Nation Reservation in Oregon, who finds himself in a complex and bloody battle as he tries to uphold the law and his moral compass amidst a series of murders and the quest for revenge by twin Native American brothers. Before we get started, here's the inside scoop on the author. When T.G. Brown is not writing books, he is a martial arts practitioner and a competitive CrossFit athlete. He practices Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Krav Maga, boxing, and Muay Thai. He competed in the sport of CrossFit before blowing out his knee in 2021. Like most CrossFitters, he would do the CrossFit Open, a nationwide test of fitness that introduces some of the hardest workouts in the world. In 2019, T.G. placed in the top 1% of that world, which was not enough to make the famous CrossFit Games, but he was proud of it nonetheless. In 2021, before injuring his knee, T.G. competed in a CrossFit competition involving the fittest law enforcement officers in the world. He was the 29th fittest law enforcement officer in the world that year. T.G. Brown is also a certified Defensive Tactics Instructor for police officers in the state of Oregon. When he is not doing his own training, T.G. works with police officers or civilians who want to learn how to stay alive in verbal, physical, or deadly use of force conflicts. You can learn more about T.G. Brown and his works at tgbrownbooks.com. Well, hi, T.G. Welcome to Inside Scoop Live.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for joining us today. I can't wait to hear more about you and your work. Before we get started, though, I wanted to mention to our listeners that your book, Tribal Honor, which you'll tell us about in a little bit, but it just won a couple of awards in our Reader Views Literary Awards competition. So we won the gold medal in the Jack Eden Memorial Award for the best book in contemporary drama, and then the bronze medal in our thriller category. That's so exciting. Congratulations. How did you react to the news?
Yeah, no, thank you so much. Honestly, I was ecstatic. Me and my wife were jumping for joy. It was really cool. As you know, a lot of writing and stuff takes place alone. You spend a lot of time by yourself, and then to be rewarded like that was truly everything. So
yeah. Great. Well, congratulations again. And why don't you tell us a little bit about the book and what inspired you to write it?
Yeah. So Tribal Honor, it's about Warren Lawson. He's a tribal police officer on the Jericho Nation Reservation. He's a younger cop trying to find his way still. He gets a case that seems kind of cut and dry, ends up being an elder abuse case, and he starts investigating it. And as he goes along, he starts to find out there's a lot more wrong than he imagined at first. And the story kind of takes off from there. So there's a lot of different characters, different point of views, and things like that go on throughout the story. Lots of twists and turns.
Yeah, wow, that sounds amazing. How did you select the setting for Tribal Honor, and what kind of research did it entail?
Yeah, so I actually kind of feel like I cheated in the research department because I'm a police officer full time. So I use a lot of my own experience as far as authentic feel of police work in the novel. And then there's, as far as the location, I based it loosely off of Grand Ronde. It's a beautiful area out there. They have a lot of rural areas, trees, grass fields. Kind of has like a Montana feel to it. And nobody's really talked about it, so I just thought it would be a really cool spot to kind of set my story.
Okay. I didn't know if you lived in the area or this was just an area that you had some appeal for. So
yeah, no, Jericho Nation's actually a fictional name for the town, but I based it loosely off of the real town of Grand Ronde.
Oh, okay, I see. Let's talk about your characters for a little bit. Now, you mentioned Warren Lawson. Tell us a little bit more about him. What's his motivation?
So he's kind of, like I said, he's younger when we meet him. He's in his late 20s. He's been an officer for a little bit. He's driven by doing what's right, but he's also has, I guess, kind of a darkness within him that kind of is sometimes good, sometimes bad, depending on the situation. When the story kind of touches on, if you step into the world of darkness, it's going to get into you. And, telling it through Warren's eyes is he's kind of this young officer and all he wants to do is the right thing. And, it kind of gets blurred because, as we know, the world is not black and white, it's very gray. So I just felt it was important to use his character as, the protagonist to show people that kind of change throughout the case and throughout the story. So, like I said, ultimately, he's kind of a guy that wants to, be a champion for people that can't defend themselves. He wants to protect them. He wants to do that type of thing. But like I said, he's got his own issues that he's got to work out sometimes. And so it's a lot more complicated for him. So, yeah.
Now, how did you balance his physical skills and moral depth in his character development? Because they both seem to be like a very big part of him.
Yeah. So I knew I was going to have the character have to do some things physically that were going to be tough if he wasn't a physically capable character. So I kind of wanted to mix together a character similar to how Jack Reacher's this big strong guy, but he's also very intelligent as well. And so I wanted to have a character similar to that, but with his own spin on it. Obviously, Jack Reacher is a lot more hardcore than my guy. So anyways, I wanted to have the yin and the yang, so to speak, where it's he's as intelligent as he is physically intimidating type of deal. So yeah, just like I say, I wanted to have a little bit of both worlds. That way when the character does age and that physicality goes away, he still has his brains and wits to kind of keep going in this world that he's in.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, good point. We
Yeah.
won't stay young forever.
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah.
Now, before we talk about this other character, I have to give kudos to our reviewer because she has what I call the best opening line of a review that I have ever read in all my years of reviewing books. And it goes like this: Marvin Bingham is a waste of oxygen. Period. Full stop. I loved that line, and I don't know how you feel about it, but
Oh, I loved it. I absolutely loved it when she mentioned something about him being one of the worst villains she's ever read. And I got to say, I was fist bumping when I read it. I was like, that's what I wanted. So yeah, I thought that was awesome for her to say.
how did you develop his character to embody this level of villainy like she described?
I kind of, like I said, a lot of it kind of came from my heart as far as the experiences in the novel. Obviously, it's a fictional novel, but I also used a lot of real life experiences to add that extra depth to characters. And I guess Marvin kind of ended up being a mix of individuals I've dealt throughout my job that were, let's say, memorable. So, yeah, I wanted to have this character that was almost like a wolf in sheep's clothing. He seems very nice. You meet him, he's not physically imposing. He doesn't really have resources like a rich person would or anything like that, but he is a very haunting individual and he's very conniving and cunning. And so I think there was a certain haunting feel to that he could literally be your dad or your grandpa. You know what I mean? That's how he presents himself. And I thought that was kind of terrifying. And that's what I wanted people to feel, is that he's not your normal villain. I wanted this villain to be as strong as my hero of the story, because I really do feel that your hero is only as strong as the villain he's fighting. So for that to happen, I had to make him really, kind of heinous in some ways.
Right. Oh, wow. How did their inner reactions and I guess the conflict between the two kind of drive the story?
So there's a lot of themes in the story, but with Marvin and Warren, they're two vastly different people, but also similar in some ways, which is kind of, crazy, because obviously they're very on different ends of the spectrum as you read the story. But their dynamic drives the story, because it's kind of, Warren's hunting this guy and he's trying to stop him from what he's doing. And Marvin just kind of doesn't even care. He's just doing what he wants. He's this guy that seemingly has no rules, while Warren lives by all the rules. If he breaks a rule, Warren is kicking himself over it. But then there's that darkness that I mentioned before. The more Warren dives into this case, the more that Marvin kind of is almost changing Warren, whether he's trying to or not, he is, because, that world is just it pulls people. You get into that and you want to help the victims, you want to do the right thing, but sometimes it's it's really hard to continue to go about it the right way. And so as the story goes, Warren's trying to fight himself from becoming Marvin, and then Marvin's just Marvin, and so yeah.
Yeah. Well, we all probably have a little bit of Marvin in us. We might not like to think so, but
Yeah, and that was the thing about him too, that I think he's very relatable in a lot of ways too. He's not just your by the book villain that's doing the wrong thing because it's the wrong thing. He's got layers to him. There's points in the story where you're actually rooting for him, and it's kind of conflicting. And I wanted him to be that way. So.
That's great. That's great. I love that. Have your experiences as a police officer influenced the plot and the characters in your novel? And can you give us some examples?
Yeah, I think it definitely did. It's a police procedural type crime thriller type novel. And so even though it was a fictional story, I wanted it to feel as real as humanly possible. I wanted people to walk away from it kind of thinking like, wow, that really impacted me, because they felt like they were there. So to do that, I definitely drew on my own feelings and emotions that I had, sometimes experiencing things that I wish I didn't, but drawing on those experiences definitely added an extra flair to the novel that brought people into it, I think, a little more. So my experience as a police officer was super important and impactful to the story, because I think without that, it's just a little less impactful. I think, yes, I could have researched it. I could have done all that. Many great authors have done that. But I think for me specifically, just having that life experience and seeing the things that I've seen, you don't see that every day. And so to write a story that's has some traumatic effects for characters and seeing that multiple times, it definitely was, I was able to document that very real and kind of do justice for those that have survived these type of events. So
yeah. Well, absolutely. Yeah. And your experiences adds that level, just another level of authenticity to your characters. What were the challenges of incorporating real life experiences and respecting tribal cultures while creating those fictional elements to maintain authenticity?
Yeah, it was definitely hard. The theme of the story, one of the many themes, and it touches on real life issues that are happening today still, is elder abuse. Our native elders get abused all the time. Well, I don't know what the statistic is, but it seems like a lot more than your average elder out there. Financial abuse, physical abuse, you name it, happens quite a bit, unfortunately. So I wanted to shed a light on that. And being someone that's investigated those cases in real life, I didn't want those victims to be in the forefront at all, because I want to protect them. I don't want them involved at all. So I had to really change the story to where it was not even close to any real cases I had, but still try to keep that emotional feelings I had during those cases, because you want to respect them, those families. They've been through, hell, for lack of a better term. And so that was definitely challenging, but like I said, I felt it was important to shed a light on that, because there's not a lot of stories that do that shed a light on elder abuse, whether it's native or anyone else. I feel like that's definitely a topic that's been overlooked. And for me personally, I feel like our elders get victimized quite a bit because, they're older and people look at them like, oh, well, they're adults and they're okay. But really they're not, so a lot of times they have the mind of a child, and at that point in their life, and people capitalize on that. So anyways, that was really the main challenge there, was respecting our tribal elders while creating a fictional story that impacted everyone as a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have several unique elements in your book. When you think of the title first, Tribal Honor, it doesn't sound like a police procedural. And then you add in the underrepresented topic of elder abuse. And so you've got a lot of unique things going on here. And it just all came together to work quite nicely.
Yeah, thank you.
What was it like writing your novel? I guess tell us a little bit about your procedure. Are you kind of an outliner, or did it come off the top of your head? Was there a lot of preparation? Tell us a little bit about how the writing process works for you.
Yeah, so it's definitely changed. I wrote this novel a few years ago, and I'll be honest, this one, somehow, some way, it was just from the heart. I was writing everything from the heart, and then I went through and edited it and made it work the way I wanted it to. But I don't recommend that, because I wrote another one after that I have planned in the future. It did not work out the same way. So now I'm definitely an outliner. I outline everything. I plan it, and I make sure I have all my character arcs, my themes, my story, everything lined up. So when I'm writing it, if I get lost in my thoughts or lost in whatever, writer's block, I have that to reference. I can pull that up and be like, okay. So to answer your question, I'm definitely an outliner now, but for this book specifically, it came straight from the heart. I wrote a couple books before this, actually, and those 2 books were never seen the light of day, never will, because
they were practice.
They were not. Yeah, I looked at them, and after I wrote them, I was like, nope, this is not good enough. And so by the time I got done with Tribal Honor, I was like, this is it. This is my first book. So
yeah. You don't think you'll pull one of those books out in 10 years or so and say, well, maybe I can do something with this, huh? No.
No, it's going in the burn pile. Never look at it again.
So were there any breakthroughs that you had, or maybe was there something that happened that came out in your writing that you hadn't planned on? Maybe a character did something you didn't expect, or something that made it into the final novel, maybe that you didn't expect?
Oh yeah. I definitely have ADD. Like I'll be writing a character and I'll be like, yeah, this is where he's going to go. And then as I'm writing the story, I'm like, you know what? It'd be way cooler if I threw a plot twist in here. Then and then I changed the whole course of the story. So that definitely happened. I had a couple characters. There was a moment where I had a plot twist in the story. And that was when I had the like aha moment, like this is the book that I'm going to publish, because I had a lot of struggles with this. I don't want to give it away, but this section of the story, and it's like I'd usually write the beginning was great, and then I'd get stuck and it'd be hard. And so I had this great twist, the plan halfway through the book. Once I got that and I nailed that twist down and had some editors help me with that, I knew I had a really good story, because I knew that was going to be something that people weren't looking for. And then that character that I bring into after that definitely had more plans for them than I actually initially planned. I was kind of like, oh no, I'll just have them as a side character. Then they took on a whole different story as it went on.
Nice. I love when that happens. It's like, just, okay, characters, you write your book, you know?
Yeah. And I just like, every time I'm writing, I'm thinking, how would this play out? Like, what would they be thinking? What would this character do? And so as I'm writing it, sometimes when I outline it, I'm not thinking as thoroughly as I am when I'm writing it out completely. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I'm writing it out and I'm like, no, that character wouldn't do that. He would do this. And even if it's like, detrimental to another character that might be beloved, I'm like, well, that's how it would play out. And I have to roll with that. And I think that adds a little more shock and awe to it, because I'm almost shocking myself as I'm writing it. So I think that comes across very authentic, when people are reading it, they're feeling that feeling I had as I wrote it. And I think that's a kind of a cool thing. So
yeah. I think readers can tell that too, somehow. I feel like I can get into those moments,
Yeah.
Maybe not, but I feel like I do.
No, I feel the same way. I feel like there's a lot of authors I've read and I'm like, oh yeah, they have that style, that kind of feel to their writing, the shock factor.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I know with all the books out there that you read, when you find one and you think about it for days after you finish, it's just wow. And
yeah.
I love when that happens.
Yeah, me too.
So who are your literary influences, and how have they shaped your approach to storytelling, especially in the context of thrillers and police procedurals?
I grew up reading a lot, so I read tons and tons of stories before I started writing. But yeah, I could go on all day on this one actually. But a few that comes to mind: Jeffrey Deaver, Lee Child, David Baldacci, those authors, and then there's Jack Carr, Vince Flynn. Those type of authors definitely come to mind. Mm-hmm. Yeah, obviously Stephen King. You can't not read a Stephen King book and be a writer. But there's just a lot of influences I had, and I guess I kind of mixed a lot of elements, even, like spy books I've read. Like Jack Carr writes, he's a former Navy SEAL, and he writes a story about a former Navy SEAL in like a spy type world. And I take elements of his writing into mine, and totally different genres, other than them being thrillers. But yeah, and there's just a lot of influences I had, and I just kind of made it my own. And this is what came out. So
yeah. What role do you believe your novel plays in broader conversations about justice and community and representation?
Yeah. So I think, the world of tribal honor, the reservation, there's not a ton of stories that speak on tribal police, tribal reservations, that type of world. So I felt like it definitely sheds a light on that community, those type of communities and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, a lot of stories don't, they're more, there's a lot of stories about the FBI, the, CIA, things like that. But I mean, not necessarily small town tribal police. They're sometimes the tribal police is usually a side character like Longmire or, stories like that.
Mm-hmm.
So having it be the main people being from the tribal police department, I definitely thought it was very impactful to show the way of life, the culture of families and the people there and things like that, because it's not represented often.
Mm-hmm.
The only one I can think of is like that TV show Dark Winds is pretty good, but it's a unique world, I guess. And I really wanted to showcase that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's not a lot of that. Yeah. Are there ways that you think that your novel contributes to the dialogue on the contemporary issues facing tribal communities?
So yes, in a way, I guess. Like I said, as far as the elder abuse is concerned, my hope is that people might notice more clues, I guess, to it, because the clues in the book are a little subtle. I'm hoping at least that as far as, there's a lot of things going on in this story, but as one of them was that people would come away and be more aware of this issue. So like I said, even though it's fiction, I try to make it feel real. As hard as that was sometimes, I didn't want to make it as real as I did, but I felt like it would only be effective if I did make it that real. So I think it will, and I hope that's my hope anyway.
Yeah. How long has Tribal Honor been out?
Yeah, it came out on December 5th, which actually happens to be my mother's birthday. So that was by design. I wanted it to be her gift that year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it came out December 5th, and the audiobook came out, I think, a couple weeks after that. It's narrated by Andrew Tell. And so it's been out for a few months, and it's doing well so far.
Wow, yeah. Oh, I thought it had been out for longer for some reason. So what kind of feedback have you received? And I'm interested if you've heard from anybody from any tribal communities, also your readers and peers in law enforcement. Have you heard from any of them?
Yeah, I have. I got a lot of messages and things on social media, Facebook and Instagram. People telling me good job or, how they liked it. It's been very positive. The community out here is great. I feel very fortunate and blessed. Like I said, they've just been super, super supportive. They think it's very cool that there's a story representing them out here. And that was what I hoped. I could have gone to a bigger area and tried to set a story there because it had more market value, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted it to be set in Oregon. Mm-hmm. And the people have been really supportive. And so the law enforcement friends that have reached out to me, I let a few of them read it. I actually had a couple as like beta readers that, read it before it came out to get their feedback to see how they felt. If they, felt like I was getting too much in the fictional realm or too much in the real, things like that to have that balance. So, police officers, they have no problem being critical. So my cop friends that I gave it to, I knew that they would tell me like, hey, this ain't ready, or you got something here. And so when I got the stamp of approval from them, I felt pretty confident in what the product I was going to put out.
Nice. And what did Mom think about her birthday present?
She loved it. She read the book in like a week or something. It was really cool. I go visit my parents every Monday, actually. Just it's always been a tradition since I graduated high school. One week she was like, yep, I'm going to start your book. Next week she had it finished. And she was like, oh, I just love this. And then, wanted to talk about the end of the book. And she was really supportive. And it was really cool to see her reaction to it afterwards.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's so awesome. So reflecting on your journey, what advice would you give to aspiring writers who are balancing another career alongside their writing ambitions?
Yeah, what comes to mind right away is that no matter what, try to get a couple minutes a day of writing, stay consistent with your story. I think that's what really helped me continue the story, whether it was 5 minutes in a day or 2 hours. I could always make 5 minutes, sit down, type a paragraph if that's all I had. But it really kept me connected to the story, and that helped me continue to inch away until the story was done. And then, becoming a student of the genre that you want to write in, I think that's very key to my development as a writer too, is, I try to like 5 minutes before bed, no matter how busy my day is, I'll sit down, I'll read a book. I have a book, in the queue, so to speak, where I'm like, all right, I'm going to read this book and learn from that, not only enjoy it, but I'm going to learn from these authors. And I think those two things are things that you can do no matter how busy you are. I think that's kind of the key: consistency. No matter what you got going on, if you want to be a writer, you got to be consistent. So
yeah, because it would be so easy with all of the other demands of daily life to put it aside, and then it never gets written. So you've got to make it a priority. Yeah.
Yep. And it's something I guess for me, I just love writing. I've had such a passion for it that it doesn't feel like I need to make time for it, and I can understand for people that it does feel that way. But for me, it's always something I look forward to. I'm always like sitting down and I can't wait to get back to my characters, and I can't wait to, put in this next scene. It's something I always look forward to every day. So it's easier for me, I think, just because I love it so much. And I just want to carry that throughout my whole career. So
yeah, that's good stuff. So do you have plans for another book? If so, what can you tell us about it without giving too much away,
Yeah. No, I got plans for a sequel to Tribal Honor. I'm not announcing the title yet, but I have it pretty much all planned out. It's going through the editors right now. I went through its first round of editing, and now it's going through it to another editor, and she's going to look it over and give me her feedback here soon this month. And then we'll go through the proofread after that, and I'll try to reach out to my narrator and get the audiobook going. I'm very ambitious with the second one because I want to keep the momentum rolling and get it out there. But as far as what I can speak about what the story contains, it's a little bit different feel than Tribal Honor. This one's more of a manhunt type book, kind of like fugitive, fast-paced stories like that, where it's a 24-hour period. Warren Lawson gets his case. This guy's kind of gone off the deep end, and he's got to stop him. And then it kind of goes from there. And it's going to be a fun ride. I can't wait to share it.
Nice. So do you envision a whole series based around Warren Lawson?
Yeah, I do. Like I said, I wrote Tribal Honor actually years ago, and while I was trying to get it published, I just kept writing. So I actually have a few rough drafts already kind of written out and planned out in the future. So I'm hoping to kind of start pumping out these stories quicker and quicker, so I can just keep building on the character and go from there. So I want to turn him into a series character, and then I have other aspirations of doing other genres. I've thought about doing a supernatural thriller, and then I've thought about doing Western, but like a Western in the vein of a crime thriller, kind of different spin on that. But so like I said, Warren Lawson's my main project, but I have a few others down the road that I'm also planning as well. So
Nice. Well, TG, did you have anything else you wanted to add today?
Thank you so much for having this platform. And for those that get the book, please leave a review. The reviews are very helpful in the growth of the novel. Actually, I've read a statistic that 79% of people base their purchases of a novel solely on the review or rating of the book. So if you get it, leave a good, honest review on Amazon. That's super helpful, and I'd really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to be a full-length term paper or anything. It can be 1 or 2 lines even. Anything helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. If it's just a rating or it's whatever. Either way, if there's just something to show people what type of book it is, I think that's what we're looking for. And like I said, I appreciate any time that people spend reading my book and any reviews that I can get.
Well, TG, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing a little bit more about you and your work.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me today for my interview with TG Brown, author of Tribal Honor. You can learn more about T.G. Brown and his work at tgbrownbooks.com. And be sure to check out our other interviews at InsideScoopLive.com.